Alright, so here we are with all the materials for class number 2. So here is the template that we used to make the camera, and I have cut out a couple of those. I have a gray one, and I have two that are on this Centura Pearl silver. And I have cut out all the pieces that go on there and a couple of the stars, and just to have that all ready to go. This here is one of each of all the circles, and those are already cut out. So we are ready to start the card. So this card is going to be a Z-fold card, which starts off as a 10 by 7, scored at 2.5 and 5, and then it's folded back. So you have your Z-fold right here. Now what we're going to do here is I'm going to be using the navy blush and some black paper. Now it starts off with, I have 2 2.25 by 6 3/4 black. So that gives me 2 by 6.5 that we're going to go on here. And then if I have a 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, which I'm going to put a 4.5 by 6.5 on here. So let me get these glued first, and then we'll start working on all the pieces. Now this paper does have a pattern, has an up and a down, and I did cut it from the 12 by 12 sheet, so I need to make sure I put all these on in the correct order. And I decided I do want it looking like it's dripping from the top instead of the stripes coming up from the bottom. We'll just get all this glued on. That is very crooked. Let's get that centered. There we go. Now this one. This is the 4.5 by 6.5. On the 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. And we'll get that centered. Alright, let's bring in my base. Flatten this out a little bit. Now I do want the black part on the top, and the reason why I decided to do that, I think I need a little more glue on the top here. There we go. Is I'm going to be putting the camera on the bottom down here, so I didn't want to cover the pattern, so that's why I put most of the pattern that was more distinct on the top here. So first let's glue this panel on the front. And this will be centered. Now let's do this one. And you can see here the pink stripe started here, so it's going to continue over here. So let's get that lined up. Just like this. There we go. I'll put this to the side and let it dry. Alright, now let's talk about the photo frames. I decided I was going to use the Lady Through the Ages to fill in these pictures. So how I did that was, put these up here, I have the empty frame. I have the lady, which I only bothered to do the top. So I gave her some hair, and I gave her a little sweater, because we're going to cut this off. So this will get glued back here, and then this piece is 2 inches, let me measure it again. It is 1 7/8 by 2 inches. So what we're going to do here is just put some glue across the back. I'm going to line up my lady here to where I want her in the frame. I think about there. I can pick this up and snip her off the back. I just want to make sure she's not going to show, so I'm just going to cut it a little bit above the line there. And I did use the little circle to give her the back of the hair, because on this particular hair, it kind of goes through her head. You do need the back on that one. So now I'm going to put some glue here, across the bottom, across the top, down the side, and I'll glue this on. And this is 2 by 1 3/4. I mean 2 by 1 7/8. Alright. And it is that easy to put the little ladies in a frame. So this I'm going to use on my card for the class, because I obviously am filming these before the class, and I'm going to use these on my card today. So now let's talk about the camera itself. Now this here, now we have all the pictures, all the circles here, which will need to get glued on top of each other. And then this is the one that will get stamped. So let me start gluing these together. And start with the smallest one and work my way up here. It's laid in the middle. And we'll do the next one. Alright, I'm going to get my stamping platform to stamp the center. Okay, so now we need to stamp the middle camera part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of scrap here, and I'm going to take the stamp from the set, put it here in the middle, and I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to ink it up. And I'm just going to use the alcohol proof. For our purposes, for this card, it doesn't really matter. You could use quick dry if you have it at home. But I'm trying to stick to what's in the kit. So I'm going to stamp this down. So now I know where my stamp is going to go, because I want to make sure I center this. Maybe about there. So I'm going to tape this down. So now I can take my die cut and I can put it in this hole, and I know it's going to be lined up perfectly now. So now I can ink this up. And I'm going to stamp it down. And it should be right there in the center. There we go. Right in the center. So that's something you can do if you have a stamp that is hard to line up. Just cut out, stamp it on a piece of scrap, and use your negative to line it all up. It's a great way to do it. That is now done. So let's put this away. Alright, so let's bring in my circles I've already done. So now I'm going to stick my lens on here. Some glue on there. This will go in the middle. Just like that. There we go. Alright, so now we have to talk about this camera. Now, I'm doing this before the class, so there might be an easier way to do this than I'm about to do this. I'm going to bring in my trimmer, and I'm going to chop off the top part right to the bottom of the curve. We're just going to take that part off. So now I'm going to look at this here. Now this little piece here is 1/8 of an inch. The tiniest die is 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to cut this 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go in from, let's see, so if I'm at 3 7/8, let me make that nice and straight there. I'm dealing with a straight number here. I'm going to bring this in 1/8. I'm going to bring it down to 2 3/4, and I'm going to cut a strip for the top of the camera. And then I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to cut off to 2 1/4. So now I'm not going to use this part. So now that leaves me the center part. But I want to cut off one more 1/8 of an inch to match the top strip. So I'm going to come down one more 1/8 of an inch, cut a strip for the bottom. So let's see what I have so far. So now I have, move this over just a little bit. I have a strip for the top, I have a strip for the bottom, and I have this to put in the middle. Let's see if I need to cut any more of this off, or if that's going to be good. I think that will be just fine. And then this will go here. I think that will be just fine. So that's how I'm going to leave it. So let me glue these pieces down. So this piece will go across the top. And once I get everything on, if I need to trim the ends a little bit, that'll be fine. Alright, there's the top. I'm going to put a strip across the bottom to match. A little bead of glue. Here. Make sure that's straight. Yep, that's straight. Now this will go in the middle. Now here I have to decide if I want to put this up on a little bit of foam to make this look more like the lens, and I think I do. So I'm just going to use 1/16 foam. So this foam is a 1/2 inch wide and 1/16 of an inch thick. And I'm just going to put some on the back here, like that. Pull this off. And this will go here in the middle, like that. Alright, so now we have all the pieces for the camera. So I already glued, let me get the stamp set, the die set. Alright, so here is where we have our circles. Here are the pieces for the camera. Here's our star decorations, and this is the little piece that goes on top over like the flash. So first let's put this piece in. And I just stuck these to painter's tape because I knew when I cut these out ahead of time, I needed to keep track of these. These little pieces might disappear on you. So any kind of, low tack paper or tape that you have would work. That's going to go across the top. Now when I cut this, I cut it in the stencil, from the stencil I should say. And so I think I may have had just a little bit of a tad too much on top here. So I'll just trim that off. Put that back there. There we go. Now we have our button, which will go over here. And this is our little red light, which will go next to it. Put that more in the center. All right, now on the other side. All right, so we have our little pieces here. These just go right on top. I'm going to grab my tweezers. My hands are getting kind of sticky. And I'll put that right here. And I'll put this one next to it. I'm going to put glue on this side, just as that side looks a little rougher. And this will go on here. Just line that up. Alright, I see my little piece has gone missing, so let me cut another one of these real quick. Alright, so here's the small square. I think I need a new set of tweezers. This goes up here in the square. This little rectangular, oops, that came off. Make sure that's straight. Put a little more glue on here. Yeah, you don't want to have the glue oozing out, but sometimes you don't put enough. Alright, so there's that. So that is the whole camera. So now we can decorate the card. So let's bring in the base. Let me put the stamp and die set away. Alright, so the camera I want to put down here. And this is a 5x7, so I kind of need to put it straight. I can't really put it at an angle, but I do want to put it on some foam. So let's see, so this is going to go here, and let's bring in our picture. So we're going to have one here and one here, I think like this. So I need to put foam on this side. And here. Let's put that on. There we go. Now we can glue the pictures on. Now you can see I used the B side of this paper because that way it would just coordinate. Wouldn't have any trouble with it blending in. Alright. So now for the inside of this card, I also want to put a message in here. So let me grab my message before we glue that picture on. Alright, so I have a happy birthday and an inside message that says, wishing you a picture-perfect birthday. May every moment be framed with joy, zoomed in on laughter, and captured with love. Now I'm going to put this up here for a second in case you want to write that down. There we go. Now, I cut it out as a 3x5 because that's the pretty standard what I use for my cards. But I'm thinking for this particular card, I'm going to cut it down. And then I can put this picture on the top. I think that's what I'm going to do. So let me grab my trimmer. And I do have a happy birthday that matches it. And I printed out and cut out a bunch of happy birthdays with a shadow. And I figured I could color the shadow whatever color I needed when I was ready to use the card. But I would have them ready to go. Because when I print them out on a whole piece of paper, you know, you can fit a bunch. And then I just keep them in an envelope. So I'm going to cut this to 3x3. Maybe a little bit less, maybe 3. That's better. So 3 by 2 3/4. So then I'm going to take some black that I will cut to 3 by 3 1/4. Now that is a little crooked. Get a different piece here. All right, 3 1/4 by 3. That should fit on here. Let's see, what did I cut this to? 2 3/4 by 3. Let's see, why does that not look right? That looks too long. There you go. That's better. All right. All right, so this ended up being 2 3/4 by 3. So that would make this 3 1/8 by 2 7/8. I'll glue this down. Since I'm using a little border, I'm just going to use some Collel glue so I can slide it into place. Since this is my last bottle, I'm trying to use it sparingly. Okay. All right, so let's finish this up. So I want this to be hidden when the card is closed. So here again, I'm going to use some Collel glue so I can slide it if I have to. And we'll glue, that was close. We'll glue this down. Let's see, so if that's going to get turned that way, I want to turn this way. All right, let me check it before I press it down. Nope, it shows a little bit there. Okay, now it's hidden. That can stay there. Then this will get glued down here. Like that. Alright, so that's what we have now. Now we just need to put the happy birthday on here. So I think I want to color this black. Now I do have some of these stars which we can put on. I think I will. I think I'll cover where that ink wasn't completely even. And Maybe I'll put one over here, and I'll put one up here. Well, first let me decide where the happy birthday is going to go. I think here. Alright, so let me color this in really quick. Alright, bring in a little piece of scrap here. And I'm going to bring in the yellow Duet ink that was in the kit. And ink that up. Make sure I'm inking the correct side. And I'm just going to put some yellow ink on here. There we go. Now we will glue this on. And any happy birthday in your stash will work. So I'm just going to use this one. And I am thinking let's see, maybe I want to put it here. And put my star over here. I think that's what I'm going to do. So I have this foam here, which is still 1/16 thick, but it's only 1/4 of an inch wide. And I'm just going to put this on the back of here. And we'll just cover that. Now all that's left is to glue on these little stars. And this is done. We'll put one star on here. And we'll put one star over here. And one star over here. Close up my glue. Okay, and we are finished. Alternative card to what you can do with these materials from the class. So there's lots of things you can do. It didn't have to just be a shaped card or an easel card. You can just use it as a topper on any card you want. All right, let's get ready for class number 3.